Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching us from. Thank you for coming back to the channel. And this is Miranda, and today I'm going to be showing you another tutorial, and this is a tutorial on how to make a paper bag short for a little girl. I'm making it for my daughter. She'll be clicking 12 in a few months. So I'm going to be using her measurements, okay? So we're going to be needing a fabric. I have this fabric. It's quite hard, almost like a jean kind of fabric, okay? So this is a leftover fabric that I had used to make a dress. So I just thought, let me make something for her. And I'll also be making a small apron if the fabric should remain. She's been telling me she wants an apron, so I hope that the fabric will be enough. So we'll be needing the fabric, you'll be needing your scissors, you'll be needing your pins, and you'll be needing your measuring tape, and of course the chalk. I was thinking I'd draft it on paper first, but I think we'll just go ahead and draft it on our fabric, and then we'll be able to cut. You might also need a ruler, okay, for your lines. So we're just going to go into it. I'm going to leave the measurements in the description so that you can follow if you want to follow the exact measurements, but otherwise you have to measure yourself, your client, or whoever it is that you'll be making this short for. Okay, so let's get into the tutorial. Alright, so now we're going to go on and start imputing our measurements. So what I've done here, I just folded my fabric into two, okay, like this, and then you can see some lines there. Actually, I need to impute one more line there, so let's just see which is the length. Okay, so I'll be working with a length of, I'll say 11.5. so that will be our hemline. Okay, 11.5. 11.5. Okay, so I'll be explaining those lines just now. Okay, so here, as I was saying, we have these lines that I've gone on to draw. So we have the first line, this will be our waistline, okay, and then from there I drew the hip line, and then the crotch line, and this is our hemline. That is how long we want the trouser to be. Okay, this is our hemline. And to that hemline, we're going to also be adding our folding allowance. I'll use 1.5. Okay, so let me just mark that. Okay, so this line that I'm putting now, I'm going to draw it now, is just our folding allowance. So I've just added 1.5 inch. It should be okay, so that by the time we go on to hem it, we would have already gotten we would get the actual length of the trouser that we want. So I will say this again. So the first line there is our waistline. It's just a random line that I drew just to help me have a reference point, and then from there I measured the hip. This is the hip line, so this is the position where the hip lies if you measure vertically from the waist down. And then this other line is the crotch line. Then we have our length. This is where we want our shorts to come up to. This is just our folding our allowance. Okay, so the next thing is we're going to go on to impute the measurements. We actually won't be using the waist measurement. we are going to use the hip measurement and the crotch measurement for our particular short. So I'm working with a hip of 30. Okay, so the hip circumference is 30. 30 divided by 4, okay, is 7.5. okay, 7.5 would be there, but because I want this short to be a little bit loose, okay, loose fitting, I'm going to add sewing allowance. I'm going to add ease allowance rather of 1 inch. Okay, the hip measurement is 30. 30 divided by 4 is 7.5. So this is where you would mark your 7.5 if you want it to be fitting on the body, but I want it to be loose, so I'm adding 1 inch allowance, ease allowance. Okay, and then we go to the crotch line. This is the line just below the hip. So on the crotch line, that's where you're going to impute your thigh measurement or your lap measurement. Okay, in our case we are using a lap measurement or thigh measurement of 19. So if you divide 19 by 2, you get 9.5. okay, 9.5. okay, so this measurement that you got at the hip, you are going to transfer it to the waistline because you want, okay, you want to get some gathering effect. That's why we're not even going to bother shaping the shorts on the sides, because all this excess is going to be taken in when we add our elastic. So you can add, for this short, you can add an elastic or you can add a string, whichever works for you, a drawstring. Okay, and then this is our thigh measurement, which you place on the crotch. So from here you just connect this line up, okay, like that, and then you are going to just shape this. You can use a curved ruler. Okay, I think I've got one somewhere. You can use a curved ruler if you wish, or you can just curve it by hand. Okay, I just want for it to be more curvy. Okay, otherwise you can just do it by hand. Okay, and then this is our thigh measurement. Okay, so from the thigh measurement you are just going to connect it down to our hemline. And I'm also not going to bother shaping the shorts here because I want it to be loose fitting all through. Okay, if you wanted to make this more fitting, what you would do is you would get this measurement, that is your thigh measurement, which you have placed here. Okay, so then you would divide that by 2. In our case it's 9.5 divided by 2. You just fold your measuring tape there and crease it to get the midpoint of your crotch line. So you would mark this here, mark it here, and mark it on these other points. Okay, and mark it on these other points. Then you would just draw the line. I don't see the crease line anymore, but anyway, so you would join this, and then that's when you would place your measurement at the hem of your shorts. Okay, but since I want it to be loose fitting, I'm just going to connect this down to the hemline. It's a very, very easy short. Okay, so we have something like that. On the waistline, you want to go up by, let's go up by 0.75. okay, because I want to use this front piece to cut the back. So 0.75. we're going to reshape this once we cut the back. Okay, If it's for an adult, you can go up to even 2 inches, and then you connect it back to the waistline. And this is to allow for the shorts or trouser, palazzo, to be able to sit properly. Okay, this is going to give a lift to the back side, but we're going to come back here and measure. Let me just put ½ inch because it's for a child. Okay, I'll come back to reshape this once we've cut the back. Okay, so this is what we have, and the next thing is just to cut this out. Remember, I haven't added any allowances to the front piece. Okay, so let me just label this so that I don't confuse myself. So this will be our front piece, and we're going to use this piece to cut the back. Already cut. So if you can see, when I was cutting the edge, I just folded this part down, the hemming allowance, and then I went on to cut, because if you cut it straight, if you don't have this kind of tail, it will be, you'll find that when you fold, the fabric will not be enough. It will give you a funny shape here. So just make sure that you make this kind of shape at the edge of your hem, and you get that easily by folding it in just before you start cutting. Okay, I hope that's clear. So now we're going to proceed to cut the back. We're just going to place this front piece on our folded back material, and then we're going to cut those. We're almost done with the cutting of our shorts. So what I've done is I've gone on to place our front piece on the back, just labeling that. Okay, and if you have noticed, what I've done is, after placing our front pattern on top of the back piece, this is what is going to form our back piece. I then went on to add 2 inches for allowances, sewing allowance, some ease necessary. So I was adding 2 inches, you can see, about 2 inches. Okay, and then at the crotch area I added 2.5, okay, just to give her enough room, and then I continued with 2 inches all the way. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to cut our shorts. Let me just do this so that I can remove this top part. Okay, so I'll go on to remove the front part, and I'll just cut the back piece quickly. is a very easy short to make because you don't have to worry about shaping the waist. You don't have to worry about fly zippers because this is going to be held together by an elastic or drawstrings. I asked the owner, she said she prefers elastic. So we're just going to go ahead and cut it. I want to label the other part as well. And then I'm just going to slit the side so that we have 2 back pieces and 2 front pieces. Okay. Okay, so there we are. We have our back pieces. I'm just going to pin this because I think I want to also add some pockets, but I think I'll use a lighter fabric for the pockets. I'm going to fetch that just now, and then I'll just show you how we're going to cut that before we proceed to sewing. We're also going to be needing a waistband that will be attaching to our short. Okay, so but before we do that, let's just cut our pockets. So I've gone on to cut the pocket or the pocket bags. You can see I'm using a different fabric. This is a lighter piece, and this is what I'm going to use for the pocket. So what I did, I just asked her to place her hand like this, open it, and then kind of traced around her palm, and then I just cut. I cut 4 pieces here, so 2 pieces for each side, or 2 pieces for each side. So now to place the pockets, we come to the waistline. So it's not this side where you have the crotch, the other side, which is going to be on the side seam. You come down by 2 inches, or we can even say 1.5. Let's use 1.5. Okay, let's use 1.5. Let me notch. I think it would be easier that way. I just notch a little bit so that we can know where we're going to start attaching our pocket from. Okay, so I'll do the same with the back pieces. Just put a small notch. Okay, so then we're going to place our pocket bags there. So you're placing them on the right side of the fabric to start with. Okay, let me move them. So this is the right side of the fabric, and that is where you're going to attach the pocket first. Okay, I'm just going to pin it in place. Somehow these pins are blunt. They're quite blunt. Okay, so you attach it this way. Actually, it's not at the point, so you have to make sure it's starting where you have notched, so that you don't get issues, because they have to match with the other one that will be on top. So if you miss that point, it means there's going to be a mismatch somehow, and you might have to unpick that stitch in order to correct it. So just make sure the pocket bag is starting from where you had notched, and then you're going to attach it. So when you have done that, the next thing is just for you to stitch. I'm just going to use 1/2 inch to attach this pocket bag to the main fabric. Okay, again I'm going to flip it to the right side, and I'm placing them right side of the pocket bag, facing right side of the main piece. Okay, so I don't know if it's my pins or it's just that the fabric I'm working with is very, very strong. It's very, very hard. So even when I'm stitching, I think I'm going to use a jeans needle. okay, because otherwise the needle might struggle to perforate the fabric or to go through the fabric. Okay, so I'm just placing this. So I've gone on to attach the pocket bags on each side. As you can see, I just stitched 1/2 inch. Okay, I attached them 1/2 inch, right sides facing. So I did that for all the 4 pieces. The next thing is we want to sew the front pieces together. So what you're going to do is, okay, so we're going to join the crotch area now. Okay, so here now I've gone on to, first of all I went on to finish off the edges. I just use a zigzag stitch. If you have an overlocker, you can go ahead and overlock it. And so I just overlocked the sides, and I left the bottom part and the top part raw because I'm going to be attaching the bands that will form the ruffles at the top. And we're going to be folding. I was actually trying to think of whether I want to just go ahead and hem the side and just fold it once, or I want to add a turn-up for the shorts, but I'll see by the time I'm finishing that. But you can decide how you want to finish the bottom. You can just fold it twice and then make a stitch, or you can create a turn-up for the shorts. So after finishing up the sides, what I did, okay, as you can see, I went on to finish up the edges of the shorts. I just used a zigzag stitch. Okay, if you have a serger and overlocker, you can go ahead and finish up the edges before joining the crotch. So you can see this is the crotch area. Okay, so I just, sorry, my video stopped recording, so I was just explaining that I was just pinning the front to the back by pinning it this way on the crotch area. Okay, so I'm going to go to the machine and just make a stitch there about 1/2 inch. I'm going to take in 1/2 inch. After that is done, then I'm going to come to the sides. Just make sure that where the pockets start, you remember where we took the notch, I hope you can see that notch. So make sure that they align, and obviously the back piece is going to be bigger than the front piece, so don't be worried when you see that it looks bigger. That's how it's supposed to be, because that is how we are adding our allowances. So we're just going to go ahead and stitch. Okay, we're going to stitch our back to our front this way. Okay, okay, so after stitching the middle there, the crotch area that is, then you're going to go to the sides as well and just do a straight stitch from the waist to where the pocket starts. You stop, okay, because otherwise you're going to stitch the pocket closed. So you're going to stitch from the waist up to where the pocket starts. And let me just show you. You can actually pull the pocket bags out this way. I'm going to put them out this way. Just put them out. I'm just gonna put one pin there. Okay, so you start stitching from the waist, 1/2 inch. When you get to where the pocket starts, just back stitch, and then you follow that pocket sack or bag around. You stitch around, you come up there, back stitch, and then you continue sewing down. And you're going to do the same thing for the other pocket. Okay, you're going to do the same thing. So you just bring the back piece to match the front piece like this. I hope you can see. So I just brought the back piece to match the front piece. Okay, so it's going to lie like this. Make sure that the pockets are properly aligned. So when you start sewing from the waist, you're going to come this way, back stitch here, and then you go around the pocket bag. When you get to the main piece there, you again back stitch, and then you continue down to the hem of the short. So I'm going to go to the machine and I'll just stitch that. And afterwards I will show you how our shorts will be looking. You can see that the shape is formed. The only thing that will be remaining is to attach our band. Okay, so remember, you're going to attach, or you're going to sew now that I've pinned it. So I'm just going to go and sew or stitch on the crotch area, sorry, using 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to go to the sides. Okay, my pin came out here. To make sure the pocket are aligned. Then I'm just going to go on now to stitch the side. So from the waist, I'm going to come there, back stitch, and then follow the pockets, back stitch. So from the waist, back stitch when you get here, and then you just follow the shape of the pocket. When you get here, back stitch, and then you go all the way to the hem, and you do the same for the other side. And the next thing after we've done that will be to attach our band. Okay, so I have already cut out the band here. Okay, so I've actually gone on to create a belt for our shorts. I think it's gonna look nice. So this is just a belt, and it has a width of 2.5 inches, meaning you cut 5.5, because you're going to use the 1/2 inch for sewing, and then when you fold it in the middle, it should give you 2.5 inches. Okay, this is a string that I made, or a strap that I made. I'm going to use it as a loop to pass the belt through, but I'm just going to make 2 at the waist, or at the sides of the waist. And this is what I'm going to be using for my waistband. This is what is going to form the ruching. So what I did, you can see I've ironed in 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch on top. So this is the allowance I'm going to be using to attach this band to the waistline. Okay, and you can see a white line there. I'm going to stitch it close, so I'm going to stitch just on that line, closing off the upper part of this strap. This is where the gathers are going to be formed, and then under here, it's where we're going to pass. You can pass an elastic. I think I'm going to use an elastic, or if you wish, you can use strings. Okay, so let's just go to the machine and see what our short will look like after we've sewn all the pieces together.